Representative Henderson. Representative Larson. Representative Sherwood. Representative Stith.
Here.
Representative Walters.
Here.
Representative Zwanitzer.
Here.
Chairman Nicholas.
Here. Okay, we've got a couple re-referrals, I believe. Yep, so I'm looking for 35. Re-referrals, Senate File 35, school crosswalks, pedestrian crossings. Is there anyone here that wants to comment on it? If not, we will close public comment. And we have a motion on the, moved by Representative Henderson, seconded by Representative Sherwood. Discussion. Any discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I guess I don't know if there's anyone here that wants to talk about how they picked the number 10 million and why they chose the general fund going to the Department of Transportation versus using transportation dollars, YDOT dollars, to do these crosswalks. If anyone can answer that.
Come on up. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Tom Dehoff, the Assistant Chief Engineer for Operations from YDOT. Representative Walter, Mr. Chairman, through you, Representative Walters, this bill did begin in the judiciary intern, and it first started out as a penalty, to increase the penalties for crosswalks violations. And then through the intern, it did change over to providing, and they are the ones that came up with the $10 million, and they did want to see that go through YDOT. I do not know how they came up with 10 million.
Follow up? You say they wanted to see it go through YDOT, but here they're funding it with general funds and sending general funds over to YDOT to effectuate the idea of prioritizing which crosswalks need replace or need possible overpasses, underpasses, signage. That YDOT would be who is prioritizing those lists after the county and the districts submit to YDOT. Why would we not be using YDOT dollars to do this? Would be my first question within your budget. And then also I'm questioning the role of YDOT on streets that are not, maybe not even YDOT controlled, to be prioritizing if those crosswalks should be fixed, improved, signage, et cetera.
Mr. Chairman, through you, Representative Walters, you are correct. Most crosswalks, if not the majority of crosswalks, are on municipalities' systems that YDOT does not oversee. We do have a TAP program, and I think that's where they were thinking is we already do transportation alternative programs, which is federal money that municipalities, it doesn't matter if it's state, county, or city, that they can put in for. It's an application process, and that is money that can go out on those facilities. In this case, this $10 million, if it were to come from YDOT's transportation money, it would be out of our state dollars that we are having a hard time right now matching the federal funds. So I can't speak for the author of the bill, but I would think that was their thinking.
Follow up? So you do have a program where we could access federal dollars, and it doesn't mention in here that they would be, that the locals would be required to put in 25% match towards these. So if we took out the $10 million general fund appropriation and simply directed YDOT to work with these districts, the districts could put in the matching funds again to go towards the federal funds, and we all win.
So right now, Mr. Chairman, through you, Representative Walters, Right now, the TAP program is funded at the federal level at $4 million. So if we were directed to increase that dollar amount, it would take money off of our other assets that we have asset management systems that are conditional. That is our pavement management system, our bridge management system, our safety management system. Those are management systems that determine where projects should be spent for the money and in order to meet our performance levels to receive our federal money. So that would decrease the money to try and meet those performance values.
Mr. Chairman, but what I'm saying here is if the locals came up with the money, not the YDOT funds, to meet what's expected. So YDOT would simply be the facilitator of the activity and the locals would be the input. Would that still function?
Mr. Chairman, through you, Representative Walters, I am not following you when you're saying the locals will fund the $10 million?
Mr. Chairman, if there's federal funds available and the local district, for example, were to put up $1 million to go get $1 million of federal funds, for example, would YDOT be able to facilitate in that transaction to make sure that that district could get those federal funds to where there would not be a need for state general funds to interact in this equation?
Mr. Chairman, through you, thank you for that clarification, and sorry I wasn't following you. Through the IDGA program, there are several grant opportunities available to local entities, and YDOT is facilitating that right now, helping locals understand those grant opportunities. So yes, those grant opportunities are there now, and this would just be a supplement to that.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, can you describe what those grant opportunities are? How much, what other matching requirements? So my question then is, how can we maximize these dollars to get as much matching and buy-in from the communities as possible?
Mr. Chairman, it's a great question. There are several grant opportunities. I don't know the exact ones. I can think of complete streets, but you have to remember you are competing with everybody in the nation to get those. So it's a very competitive grant process to receive those. But I think if an entity were to come up with a big dollar match for that grant, that I would say be more competitive than if you did 10% match.
Okay, further questions? So is there anyone here, there's no one here from Judicia that explains how this thing evolved? Well, we could reduce, we could require matching, we could. In here already. Yeah, I see. Go ahead, Representative Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So are you able to tell us how many people in the crosswalks that you have oversight with that have been injured or killed in Wyoming in the last 2 years?
Mr. Chairman, through you, Representative Henderson, the numbers I have right now for state highways over the last 2 years, we've had 0 fatalities, and I'm not sure what the serious crashes are. I cannot tell you those. Now, statewide, over the last 2 years on all facilities is 1 fatality, which we are all aware of. And then I think there was 8 serious crashes over the last 2 years.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Chairman, given that information, and you say serious crashes, would there be reason to believe that it makes sense to establish some sort of a process for matching funds to maximize what we have available?
Mr. Chairman, through you, Representative Henderson, I would leave that up to you as the committee to decide that.
Other questions? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I'll just share while I was out door knocking this summer. There were several parents who did bring this to my attention, this concern for lack of visibility around our schools in my community. So I don't want to, I'd like to dig into this a little more, perhaps table it till we can hear from somebody from the judiciary. I know that there's concern about the funding coming from the general funds, but I do think that this is a topic of concern for a lot of our parents. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so I have a question. I mean, you may have already addressed this, but if you build a pedestrian overpass, what's the price tag on a typical one of those?
Mr. Chairman, through you, Representative Stith, that is a great question, and it's a number, and it depends. That's like a lawyer talking, right? It depends. It depends on the topography and where it's located, how long it is, and what are the constraints. So if I had to throw you a number, and you probably won't like it, but probably $2 to $7 million. And again, it depends.
Okay. Any further questions? Any other public comment? It's just a re-referral, so we'll close public comment. Any motions on the bill?
Mr. Chairman, move do pass, and then I would offer an amendment.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would reduce the amount from 10 million to 2.5 million, and then I would change the date from 2028 to 2025. And that would be on page 1, line 14, and then again on page 4, line 20 of changing those two dates. And if I get a second, I'll explain my thinking here, members, is I'm just not convinced that the 10 million wasn't pulled out of the sky. And so if we did 2.5 million to kind of kick the program off, let it work for a couple years and see how much usage is out there, see how many districts are applying for this, how many communities are applying for this, and then we can come back and review it and continue funding it. But to just throw a big number at it from the start when we really don't even know the usage, I think is just kind of a little bit cart before the horse kind of a situation. So that's my thinking behind the reduction and shortening the time period, just to see how it's going.
All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Any other amendments? As amended, roll call.
Representative Henderson? Aye. Representative Larson? Excused. Representative Sherwood? Aye. Representative Stith?
Aye.
Representative Walters?
Aye.
Representative Swanitzer?
Aye.
Chairman Nicholas?
Aye. Okay, do we have a copy of 76? So where's the appropriation on these? Okay, is there any motions? Any public comment on Wyoming Digital Asset Registration Act? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Any motions on the bill?
Move to pass?
Move to pass. Any amendments?
Mr. Chairman, yes. I would move to delete section 4, and this is where the appropriation comes into the bill. And this is for the purposes of the Secretary of State's office is administering the registration of digital assets. And I believe that's a task that's already covered within their general duties. I'm not sure that they need an additional 270,000.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, that motion carries. Any other further amendments? Roll call.
Representative Henderson. Representative Larson excused. Representative Sherwood. Representative Stiff.
Aye.
Representative Walters.
Aye.
Representative Swanitzer.
No.
Chairman Nicholas.
Aye. Okay, next we'll go to Larry's bill. Come on up, Larry. So we started discussing this yesterday, and it was moving in the wrong direction. And so we said, oh, we'll wait till you healed up and came back and kind of walked us through it.
Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. So members of the committee, I bring you Senate File 97 is the education transfer. Mr. Chairman, what this does is just moves the funding from the Education Trust Fund that was established in 1991. And then the first money that was actually put into the trust fund was $5 million from a easement settlement that the state of Wyoming had in 1997. And so that $5 million has been all the money that was ever seeded into this corpus since 1997. Mr. Chairman, the interesting thing when you review the statutes is when you go through there, and especially for you members that have been here for quite some time, under 21-22-101, which established the trust fund under subsection C, it says, until the balances in the account established under subsection A of this section reaches $50 million, it says the governor shall annually recommend to the legislature specific revenue sources for $10 million appropriations to the account. Mr. Chairman, in my 13 years, I've never seen the governor nor the legislature put any money in this account. So that was the original intent, but the original intent just hasn't lived up to what it was originally designed to do. It's gone through a pretty torturous legislative history. I think I provided that to you, Mr. Chairman, in some of the minutes, but this has been amended. Originally, it was for university and community colleges could work with school districts and apply for the funds. Then it was changed and other programs were added. There's 3 repealers for this thing. I guess the impetus for bringing this bill is there's $5 million stranded in an account that's invested in Pool A because it's strictly a revenue-driven asset, Mr. Chairman. Irregardless of the merits of the program, the entire intent is to get it into an area that'll generate more money for the schools. And if we look at the utilization of this, again, I think the conceptual in 1991 when they set it up was to benefit all the school children. When you look at the utilization over the last 5 years, half of the money that was derived off of the interest on this went to 4 school districts. And in the last 5 years, only 9 out of the 48 have even participated in the program. And so it just seemed prudent to take that $5 million, put it into the corpus of the Common School Permanent Land Fund that will generate a higher rate of return for the public school systems, and then that provides equity for all 48 schools. So, Mr. Chairman, that was the intent, and I think it accomplishes that. It's just a matter of moving that $5 million where it'll do more return on our investment and benefit more kids in our school system. Stand for any questions.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Hicks, you said that the $5 million for the initial deposit came from an easement settlement. What easement settlement are you referring?
So, Mr. Chairman, so the state negotiated an easement agreement for the Express Pipeline Partnership in 1996. And the footnote in Section 500 of the special session laws in 1997, it says out of that easement agreement for the Express Pipeline Partnership in 1996, $5 million would be put into this account. So that's where that original $5 million came from.
And so what's the history of the innovation, education, distribution component?
So, Mr. Chairman, I think if I understand, what's the history of the distributions? They're a competitive grant program to the Department of Education. And so there's two separate accounts. One's not dissimilar to what we do. We have the corpus, and then we also have the income account. That's where any interest goes into the income account, and then they distribute that out. Historically, that's been around $400,000 a biennium, give or take, based on investment returns, but it's invested in Pool A. And so that program is just school districts apply for it. All 48 are eligible, but as you look at the distributions on and the participation in that program, Mr. Chairman, I didn't bring copies, but I can hand that out to the committee if you'd be interested.
I think we've got it.
Okay, you've got it. So, Mr. Chairman, you can see that the school districts that are very adept at using the program have utilized about 50% of the total funding in the last 5 years. It was never the intent to get rid of the program. I think the program could still exist if we wanted to do that. But by moving it into the corpus, it generates more money for the program if we want that to do that. So you could still, this bill repealed the program, but it would certainly be within the purview of the legislature to keep the program available, move the funds. It'll generate more money for the program. So again, the only intent of this was really just to get a higher rate of return on our investment. Whether we want to direct it to this program or not, I'd leave that up to the discretion of the committee. I'm just trying to get a higher rate of return.
Other questions? Any public comment? Anyone like to speak on this bill? Come on up.
All right, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Tate Mullen. I'm the Government Relations Director for the Wyoming Education Association. Appreciate the intent of the bringer of this bill and the intent of the bill. We would like to see that program continue and sustain. That is a beneficial program to the students in those districts that utilize that. One of the things that we have seen with the Governor's Ride Initiative, the State Board of Education's profile of a graduate, there's a lot of focus on innovation in education. And that's exactly what this program does at the local level. And what a better place to do that and have that innovation than by the professionals within our classrooms who know education, know how to teach, and can figure out new and inventive ways to provide that education to our students. I did reach out to some of the districts that have applied and received this grant, and I wanted to provide some perspective of what these funds do for those schools that apply for this grant and utilize this fund. In talking with Fremont One, they have received these grant funds for the past 5 years. They house, the purpose of these funds falls under 3 umbrellas. They noted one of them was tech professional development for staff. So a lot of these funds are focused on STEM as well as some of the CTE stuff that we have within our classroom. So tech professional development for staff, teaching them how to use pieces of equipment, whether that's 3D imaging printers, that type of thing that bolsters STEM instruction. The second piece of that falls under student experience, and that is, it started in Fremont at K through 3. This program is growing. They are building this program. It is now preschool through 8th. So they have a preschool liaison that works with preschool providers in providing some of these after-school programs or some of these programs to preschools. And I'll talk about what some of those programs look like. The other one is also parent engagement, parent outreach, and that's a K through 5, and some of these activities centered around STEM as well as engineering. So what they're looking at is that grade 1, they have a Lego club. And I know that sounds, right, you kind of laugh at a Lego club, but as somebody whose son is fascinated with engineering, that love for engineering started with Legos. They are a very useful tool in getting those engineering minds to start functioning. 2nd grade through 3rd grade, there's a tech club. 4th grade through 5th grade, there's a tech club. And then the newest addition is a 6 through 8 robotics club, and they bring in some alternative high schoolers as well. I did ask in terms of capacity, like what we're looking at, how many students are we talking about? And this is, again, mind you, just within Fremont 1. That first grade Lego club has 40 students. The second through third grade program is capped at 80 and fills up 24 hours upon enrollment. The fourth and fifth was capped at 50. I think they're going to reduce it to 40 if I remember correctly. And then that robotics club, the 6 through 8, being brand new, they do have 8 students within that program. I asked them what they saw in terms of ROI and student performance. And what they noted was that there is increased engagement, interest, and aptitude with those students who participate in this program. So as much as we do love to see innovation in our classrooms, we know that this program is functional. We know that this program works. It's growing. And we would just like to see this program be able to maintain, and if we can figure out a way to fund this to keep this program going, that would be very beneficial. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Appreciate your comments. Any other comments? Come on up. Welcome.
Hello, Chairman and members of the committee. Wanda Maloney with the Wyoming Department of Education.
Good afternoon, committee. Trent Carroll, Wyoming Department of Education.
And we are available to answer any questions that you might have from the department.
Questions for the department? Representative Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This sounds like a very interesting program. From your perspective in the agency, wouldn't this be something that could be planned for in the normal budgeting process and supported?
Go ahead, Trent.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Representative Henderson, we currently have a budget unit in our Department 206 budget for this program. The revenue source behind it is the trust fund, corpus, and so as Senator Hicks mentioned earlier, that process could continue. Hypothetically, the fund would change to the School Foundation Program Fund, which, of course, the common school income flows into. So in that sense, it could continue. I imagine that would be a budget exception request to make that change, and then it would come before everyone.
Okay, further questions? Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Are there any motions on the bill?
Move the bill.
Move to pass. This is a direct referral. Right? Any amendments?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I would make the following, move the following amendment on page 2, line 6, which is the part of the repealer section, to delete the reference to 21-22-106 and delete the reference to 21-22-107, which is the substance of the program. And then in 21-22-106A makes conforming changes so that under 21-22-106A, it would read, the Department of Education shall annually distribute funds not to exceed $500,000 from the School Foundation Program account, which would require the deletion of the reference in 21-22-106 to the Education Trust Fund. So if I can get a second, I can explain sort of the. So, Mr. Chairman, the idea here is that we would accomplish the core purpose of this bill, which is to eliminate the Education Trust Fund, get that money into the Common School Permanent Land Fund corpus, but keep the program.
And so with regards to the program, how do we establish the amount of dollars available per biennium or per year?
Mr. Chairman, it'd be my understanding that that would be an exception request in the department's budget that would come before the Appropriations Committee and then become part of the budget process.
So essentially taking past 3 or 4 years to get a base number that would then come in as an exception request. Does that make sense? Trent? Okay, everyone understand the amendment? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion carries. As amended, any other amendments? Okay. Question on the bill as amended? Roll call.
Representative Henderson. Representative Larson. Representative Sherwood. Representative Stitt.
Aye.
Representative Walters. Representative Swanitzer.
Aye.
Chairman Nicholas.
Aye. All right, thank you.
I'd be honored to.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, so next, we want to talk about Senate File 96. But what we want to do is table the bill and then have you guys go upstairs, and, because we want to sit down and work through what our amendments are with you and explain them to you and get your feedback on them so that we can finalize that amendment. So that makes sense? So with that, we'll table the bill, and then that would conclude our meeting here today, and we'll meet you guys upstairs.
So they're currently in,
I don't think they're up there.
there, I just left from there. They're here in bills.
How come Larry's not up there?
He's not.
Okay. Well, we'll find a place to meet. Yeah, we could actually do it right here, but I don't have my notes.
Go get our notes.
Yeah, so if you guys stay here, we'll